Self-care isn't expensive. Self-care isn't glamorous. Self-care isn't time-consuming. Or rather, let me put it this way. Self-care doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be glamorous. And it doesn't have to be time-consuming. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you today? I hope you're well. Thank you for tuning to the Radiant Woman podcast. Thank you. As always, please like, share, subscribe to the podcast. It really gives me that boost of encouragement that I need, even though I truly enjoy doing this. But just knowing that someone out there is benefiting and also finding the podcast worthy of sharing with a loved one makes it all the more better. So please like, share, subscribe to the podcast. Thank you. And always feel free to also share your thoughts with me. You can reach out to me at hello@nisabaah.com or sekinat@nisabaah.com, and I'll be more than happy to hear from you and also respond. I do respond to my emails. Trust me, I do. All right. Thank you. So Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Today, what are we talking about? We're talking about self-care. I was about to get into the shower like a week ago, and all of a sudden I just had this amalgamation of thoughts about self-care. So this is something I've really tuned into in this past year, because if you listen to my podcast about embracing seasons, you would know that I have had a very rough 2022/2023, and I've really, and even before then, I have gone through seasons of illness and seasons that have really demanded of me physically and emotionally. So I have really leaned into self-care in this past, 1-2 years. Yeah. So that week, last week, as I was just about to take a shower, in my head, I just this like barrage of thoughts, and I was like, I really need to write this down. So after I said my salat, I took time out, and what was just supposed to be like a couple of thoughts turned into like a 16-page journaling session that I really, really needed. So I thought to share with you all, because for me, it was beneficial, and inshallah, I hope it will also be beneficial for you too. Right, so Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Oftentimes, whenever we think about self-care, many of us imagine a trip to the Bahamas, a date night, bubble bath, a spa or salon trip. And while all these can indeed be self-care activities or classified under self-care activities, I want to let you know that self-care doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be delayed to a particular time frame before we can take care of ourselves, right? So all these activities are very good. They're fantastic. I wouldn't say anyone shouldn't do them, because they're very therapeutic. They're very beneficial for us. But I think a common mistake is some of us restrict ourselves to think that in order to take care of ourselves, it has to be something extraordinary. And that's what I'm trying to debunk with this podcast, really. So what happens is, because these ideas of self-care in our mind's eye is usually time-consuming, it takes a lot of planning, and also tends to be expensive, and which are three things that we do not have the luxury of as moms or busy professionals or business owners or whatever it is that we are doing, right? We delay them or push them aside for weeks, months, or even years, waiting for the perfect time when we will have the time or enough money to splurge and, partake in these activities. Also, because our mind has been conditioned over time due to what we see on social media, what the self-care industry has been pushing to us. The self-care industry is it's worth billions of dollars, right? And it's only going to get much more as the years go along, right? So they have marketed thousands of products, activities to us, all in the name of self-care. And like I said, they are not wrong, but I think over time it has built up that mindset that, we have to do these certain activities before we can really care for ourselves. So because our mind has been conditioned over time due to what we see on social media, or what the self-care industry has pushed to us, so we stay stuck in that mindset of, I need to get these items or have these certain experiences before I can tend to my body, mind, and soul. And the worst effect of this is that due to our brain conditioning, we are unable to really enjoy or regard seemingly everyday activities that help us to look after ourselves as self-care, because our mind is unable to really see it or recognize it as what it is, right? And when our mind doesn't recognize an action or activity for what it is, we run that risk of always searching for more and not benefiting from the positive effects of that activity, right? And I'm sure if you think about it, you will agree with me. And I'll give an example here. So because a lot of us see exercise as exercise, right? So we imagine that dreaded activity where we have to, we don't consider it as self-care. We approach it grudgingly or do not even approach it at all because we don't look at it as something, we don't look at it as self-care, right? Meanwhile, if we were more open, we would realize that exercise is movement, and movement can help us release feel-good endorphins that help us handle or regulate our emotions better. Exercise can give us that time to observe and challenge our body, learn, and also build character, right? So again, because our mind does not view exercise as self-care, we run the risk of not benefiting from it fully. And this brings me back to the hadith or, actions shall be judged by intention. So whatever intention we place on an action, that's how we would benefit or not benefit from it, right? So because we have been pushed this idea of, exercise, this, that, but meanwhile, if we only just change our mind and say, exercise enables me to move, like I just need to move my body, then perhaps we might approach it in a different way. So now that I have spoken about some of the blocks behind self-care, this idea that, it has to take a lot of time, we need to plan it for days or weeks or months, or it's expensive, I've kind of addressed some of that, right? I hope we do see that it doesn't have to be that way. Now let's talk about what self-care really is. And from this definition, I have a definition here by Everyday Health, which says that self-care is all about looking after yourself. It means taking the time to tend to your physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional well-being. And what I wrote here, just on the whim, is that, in short, self-care activities or self-care is any activity that interests us, aligns with our values, have meaning to us, challenge us in new ways, that have positive effects on our body, mind, and soul. So I think we're kind of in alignment. So any activity that you do that benefits your well-being is self-care. So self-care can be incorporated as a lifestyle. It could be a one-off or something occasional, right? And self-care can also be universal. So all of us might experience some certain activities as self-care. And it can also be very individual. So some of us, one thing that might be self-care to someone might not be self-care to someone else, right? So person A and B might view an activity differently. So there are activities that are generally considered as self-care. But the beauty of human nature is like we're so diverse in our viewpoints, in the way we see things, right? So like I said, one activity that might be beneficial to individual A can differ to another person depending on their situation per time, what domain of health that needs nurturing the most, their personality, their values, how the individual views the activity, right? And so many other factors, to be honest. So for example, hiking or mountain climbing can be considered as self-care to someone that is looking to maybe challenge themselves physically, or someone that is normally adventurous. But that same activity can be pure torture to someone who just wants a quiet time in bed to read a book or sleep, or to someone that is heavily pregnant, right? So, and it doesn't take away the fact that, hiking or mountain climbing is actually an act of self-care. Right. So in short, self-care activities are subjective. That's what the long and short of it. Person A to B to C can look very differently for us depending on, our situation part time. So when it comes to self-care, we have to picture our life as a whole, which has different domains. So when we talk about domains of health, we have different things: physical, mental, social, emotional, spiritual. And now they're telling us that we even need to add other aspects like occupational, like the work we do, how we contribute into the world, our financial health, to make us have a more holistic view about our health, right? Because those are things that, to be honest, affect us. Right. So all these domains contribute to our well-being, and consistent deficiency in one area can start to affect other areas negatively. So what we want to do is that we want to ensure that we try to maintain a minimum standard for every area of our lives. And trust me, you know this instinctively. We tend to know this instinctively when any area is lacking. Right. So what you want to do is tend to that area as soon as you can. Do not wait for that perfect timing, because there's no such thing. Because the more you delay in, addressing an issue in one area, the more it has the propensity to affect other areas of your life. Right. So for example, if you're struggling in your occupational health, like the work you do and all that, it can start to affect your relationship with your children, with your spouse. Maybe you're not happy with what you're doing and stuff, or maybe you're not earning enough money or something like that. It can start causing frustrations that can make you, lash out on your kids or your spouse or something, right? So we have to address those things promptly. So our well-being, our positive well-being generally demands some certain elements. They demand some certain things from us. So for example, our general well-being demands movement, both like actual movement or metaphorically, right? It demands reduction of stress. Our well-being demands a reduction of stress. And let me point this out here. Stress in the right dose is useful for us. But the stress that we're experiencing now as a human race is off the charts, right? That's not the healthy type of stress. So yeah, our general well-being demands a reduction in stress. It also demands deliberate intention. It demands growth. It demands mindfulness or focus. Our well-being demands positive feelings such as gratitude and appreciation for life. Our general sense of well-being demands connection with ourselves, with our creator, with others around us. It demands satisfaction or contentment. And these are what any self-care activity that we choose to indulge in should encompass and give us, right? So the benefit of any self-care activity that we do should, give us all these things that I have mentioned. And this is just my own opinion. Like I said, these are things that I came up with from my own experience with self-care and also my learnings and all that, right? So a single self-care activity may not give us everything that I have mentioned. Like one single activity might not give us movement, reduction in stress, deliberate intention, growth, mindfulness, and everything. But it should encompass at least 1, 2, 3 of those. It should deliver 1, 2, 3 or some of those benefits or outcomes that we require to give us a positive sense of well-being, right? And now I'm talking about like the elements that a self-care activity should have. So, I would mention, like I said, movement, stress, reduction in stress, or at least maintaining a good stress level, deliberate intention. So I'm going to break down those elements one by one. So the very first one is movement. So here I am talking about movements physically, like moving from point A to B, and also metaphorically, like moving like your mindsets from point A to B, something like that. So as humans, we need to move. That's how Allah has designed us, right? We need to move our bodies, move from one state to another, our thoughts, everything, right? So it's an essential part of life. The cells in our bodies move. our organs move, our thoughts move, they change, right? Our emotions move, it evolves. 1 minute we might be happy, another minute we might be sad, another minute we might be ecstatic, right? So movement is part of our lives. So in order for us to care for ourselves, the activities that we engage in must move us in some form. So for example, any activity we choose should ideally move us from maybe a negative to a neutral emotional state. It should move us from a neutral to a positive emotional state. It should move us from level A to B, maybe physically or in terms of growth, maybe in our profession, something, it just needs to move us in a direction. It should move our thought process from A to thought process A, B, C, or mindset A to B to AB, but there has to be movement involved. So I hope you see what I mean. So reading is a fantastic self-care activity that really depicts it. So it takes our thought process or mindset or knowledge from point A to B. Exercise is also another good one when we're talking about in terms of like physical building, moving us physically or even mentally, right? And emotionally, right? So it takes us from emotion state A to B, physical state A to B, right? And yet, many of us don't classify reading or exercise as self-care because it doesn't look glamorous, or it is maybe too serious of an activity, too tasking of an activity, right? So yeah, that's in terms of movement. In terms of stress, we thrive in moderation as human beings, right? So while stress in the right dose, that is stress that is enough to challenge us to take an action, is great, too much stress can wreck us. And that's what we are suffering right now in the world. Our nervous system goes into overdrive. We are perpetually functioning in survival mode. So flight, freeze, fawn, fight. We are behaving erratically and our bodies feel the brunt, right? Most of us are burnt out. We are down with illnesses and stuff, right? So usually by the time we start to feel the physical symptoms of stress, we know that we have pushed it too far, actually. So our self-care activities should either deliver the right dose of stress. And I don't know if I should be using the word stress, but yeah, I'll use stress. So it should deliver the right dose of stress to either inspire growth or movement, or at the barest minimum, it should reduce excessive stress that we are currently facing. So physical exercise, gardening, mindfulness, meditation, preparing appropriately for like a presentation that you have, going to meet up with people, especially if you're like introverted, are great examples of this, right? So they help you to reduce your stress. So those are some self-care activities that you can do to manage stress, or that encompass the outcome of reducing or managing stress. Then deliberate intention. I have alluded to this a lot from the beginning of this podcast. And what I'm saying is the intention behind an activity matters a lot. If you see, so for example, if you see public speaking as a way to improve your mind, then it can be a self-care for you. But if you see it as a despised action, then it can very well be a stressor for you. So going back to that point of self-care can be individualistic in the sense that person A can view it differently from person B. So the intention that you place on activities determine how you view it, how your body, mind, and soul interprets and receives it, and how well you can benefit from it. Maybe another way to describe it is perspective taking. For example, intending to savor your meal might seem fickle, right? But the process of savoring that meal, tasting it, feeling it, looking at it, is self-care, as it brings you a sense of appreciation, a sense of gratitude, and it helps you to be present, right? Some people don't have food to eat, all those things, just savoring your meal can make you feel that sense of calm. So it can also give you immense emotional and mental benefits, if I do say so myself. So you have to be very deliberate in why you're choosing a specific self-care activity, because it impacts how much benefit you can get from it. Growth or change, right? So self-care activity should spur growth in us, either tangibly or intangibly, internally or externally, small or big. Sometimes we ourselves don't notice these growth or changes, but others do, and they can point it out to us. So, for example, learning new knowledge can gradually change our thought process or mindset without any outward physical change. Taking 10 minutes every night to have a non-superficial conversation with your spouse might only take 10 minutes and might seem on grand or not glamorous, but over time, it helps you to improve your emotional health and your relationship with your spouse. So again, it doesn't have to be time consuming. It doesn't have to look all nice and chic, or it could just be normal bland, but it has immense benefits for you. Now, mindfulness. Self-care activities should encourage us to be present, to focus, and to tune into ourselves and others around us. So our minds are naturally not inclined to stay still. It's always buzzing with thoughts, ideas, etc. And this is not wrong. It's just our basic survival modus operandi. It's just how our minds are naturally wired, right? Yet, we need activities that help us tone it down from time to time so that we can transcend beyond daily survival operations. So when we train our minds to calm down, stay present, and focus, we bring immense benefits to ourselves, such as reducing anxiety, self-awareness, developing empathy, experiencing awe, connecting deeper to ourselves and other people. So activities such as silence, seclusion, reciting the Quran, journaling, doing our dhikring, mindful meditation are beautiful examples of these activities, all of which are literally free, by the way. And they can take as little as 2-3 minutes, 5 minutes, or as long as we want if time permits. So going back to that point of self-care doesn't have to be time consuming. And most of these things are also very affordable. Like, you don't need to have thousands of dollars or naira before you can partake in these activities. Now, positive emotions. Our chosen self-care activities should be able to bring us positive feelings or emotions, either during the process or as an outcome, or even both of them, which will be like, bliss. So self-care activities should benefit us with positive emotions whilst we are doing them. An added bonus is if the outcome also generates positive emotions. Emotions like joy, gratitude, or connection, satisfaction, contentment, purpose, vitality, and many more. So for example, deciding that you will no longer settle for an energy-sucking, joy-sucking job and taking steps to make your career move, either by getting knowledge in a new area, showcasing your interest in a new area, applying for jobs in your preferred sector, can be an act of self-care because it adds positively to your well-being. It's going to take you away, hopefully, from that energy draining job that you currently do. So changing jobs, switching jobs, moving from one industry to another can be an act of self-care, right? So now that I've spoken about the blocks to self-care, most times we think it has to be expensive, or we think it's expensive, we think it's time consuming, we think it requires a lot of planning, right? I've spoken about what self-care is, how it affects our well-being, the essential components that a good self-care activity should have and deliver to us as an outcome. Let's talk about examples of self-care activities we can partake. And again, there are lots of them. Anything, let me just state this here, anything could be regarded as self-care depending on the intention that we place on it, right? So I'm just going to share a couple of self-care activities here. There are a lot. If you go online and you just check, I'm sure you will see a whole lot of them. So we have stuff around, and I'm just checking different pages right on Google. Like, my phone is right here. And, we have stuff like, taking a shower. And that's what I say. Anything can be self-care. So taking a shower, watching a movie, reading a book, exercise, taking all walks, taking a nap, writing in a journal, playing a board game, playing card games, cooking, making a list of things that you like about yourself, taking a break from social media. There's so many things that you can do. Taking a class. There's so many things. Like, the list is endless. And like I said, it is universal as much as it is individual. So just because an activity is not seen as self-care doesn't mean that it cannot be self-care to you. Keeping a gratitude journal, writing things that you are grateful for, taking time out to call your family, your friends, using a planner, just, having that brain dump, sharing a kind smile to other people, bringing lunch to work, buying your morning coffee or buying, your favorite snack. All those things can be self-care. It doesn't have to be until you go for spa dates or you send yourself a big gift or something, or you take yourself on a trip. All these are good, but like I said, sometimes it's those little things and that we need that really deliver the most benefit to us. Right. So I think I hope I've been able to kind of convince you that, anything can be self-care if you let it be. So how can we realistically practice self-care? And I'll name four things that I think are ways to kind of help us realistically practice self-care. So the first thing is mindset shift. I think that as a person, you have to internalize and start to shift your mindset. That self-care does not need to be glamorous. It doesn't need to be expensive or time-consuming, right? Although some of them can be, and it's okay, but I'm just trying to shift you. You have to shift from that general mindset that it has to be grand or something, right? Any activity can be a form of self-care if you allow it to be. The second thing is tune in. You have to be able to tune into yourself and listen to your body and honor where it's crying out for attention. Trust me, once you start to tune into yourself, you observe yourself more, you observe what's happening with you, you instinctively start to know what you need per time, and you're able to honor it. The third thing is make it a lifestyle. So do not wait till everything falls apart before you incorporate intentional self-care into your life. So be intentional about it, make it a lifestyle, and plan it into your routine. So you want to start reading books, you think books will be beneficial for your mind. Why not plan it into your routine? Or before I go to bed, even if it's 10 minutes, I'll take time to read. You don't have to read the whole chapter. You don't have to read the whole book at once. You don't have to read it in a month. You don't have to read it in 2 weeks. It could just be as little as I'm going to read for 10 minutes every night before I go to bed. Set that reminder or have someone hold you accountable and just do it, right? So you want to make it a lifestyle. Set reminders if you need to, but take action. Set a barest minimum for yourself. Honor yourself. Take action. Number 4 is align it with your values. So your values would direct or determine what you invest in and what you put action towards. So a lot of us find that we don't do things that we want to do or we think are beneficial for us because they are not a value for us, right? And we beat ourselves up because we are looking, these things are generally known to be good and everything. But if we don't consider it as a value, we will struggle to implement those things, right? So if someone, like, for example, if health is not a top value for me, it doesn't mean that it's not a value, but in terms of values, we have rankings, we have which ones are more or of more priority to us than others, and it differs from person A to B. If health is not one of my top values, right, and I want to kill myself the fact that I have to eat greens, I have to exercise and all that, I will struggle more than someone that has health as a priority. And our values change from time to time, from season to season, from when we are younger to older, right? Sometimes it's experiences that we have that make us change maybe our value systems, but values are not static, right? What I'm just trying to say is values determine where our attention goes, right? So if you want any self-care activity that you do, if you want to realistically practice it, it has to be in tune with a value that you have or a value that you're actively trying to inculcate. Now, what are the steps to successfully practicing self-care on a regular basis? And when I mean regular, it doesn't have to be every day. It could be weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, right? And I'll mention 8 steps. So the first one is, number 1, take a holistic view of your well-being. Number 2, tune into yourself and determine what area is calling out or yearning for attention. And this is all based on your current situation or your near future desired outcome. Prioritize maybe 1, 2, maximum 3, but don't overdo it, because then we are more likely to drop the ball, right? So limit to 1 or 2 per time, maximum 3. Step 3 is name that area. So name it. Name it. It's very important, because when we name things, right, it's easier to give attention or intention towards it. So name that area of your well-being that needs attention. Step 4 is decide on a self-care activity that would tend to that area that is currently bleeding or needs attention. Step 5 is make an action plan. So think about what you would do, how you would do it, when you will do it, for how long and how frequently would you do it. Also plan to make a contingency plan in case you're not able to do your desired plan or action. What can you do instead? That would help reduce any form of like criticism, even if you are not able to. And it just makes it easier for you to, even if you can't do this one, you can do this one, and it still gets you close to your desired outcome. It still helps you tend to that area that needs help. Then number 6, step 6 is take action. Take action, ladies. It's very, very important that we take action. It's a way of boosting our self-respect and honoring ourselves. Step 7 is reflect on how the activity made you feel. This one is very good, because when you realize, oh, I felt this way when I was doing this, it made me feel these positive emotions, then it gives us that encouragement or ginger to want to do it again, right? It's like reviewing, right? Then the last step is, rinse and repeat. So weekly, if you can, if you need it monthly, whatever, rinse and repeat. Or if not, move on to the next activity or move on to something else. So let me give an illustration of how this may play out in reality. I'm just going to give a random example. So step 1, take a holistic view of your well-being. So for example, I visualize my life as a whole. I might go ahead to draw out like on a piece of paper how I feel across each area of my life. So maybe my physical, emotional, spiritual, I could just draw something like, or maybe circles to say, oh, in my physical, I'm feeling really great, so I had draw a big circle. In my emotional, not so great, so I draw a smaller circle, something like that. In my mental, I'm okay, just average, I draw like a mid-sized or average-sized circle, something like that. Then I move on to step 2. I tune into myself and determine which well-being area will give me the most benefit if I focus on it. So just because my emotional is this list doesn't mean that that's what I need to address at that point. It might be something else that is affecting. So that's why tuning in is very important. So maybe, for example, I determine that my emotional well-being actually indeed needs tending to, because I've been feeling really upset lately. I've been lashing out at my children or at my spouse or something. And, maybe because of an argument that I had with my spouse some time ago, and I feel like I need to discuss it with somebody, maybe preferably my spouse. So number 3, I named the well-being area, which is my emotional health needs tending to. So I name it so that I can send attention and intention towards it. Step 4, I determine what self-care activity I would engage in to tend to that area. And for me, I decide that I will speak to my husband and share my thoughts with him with the hope that I get some form of relief, even though I don't know how it might play out, right? But I'm expressing myself, so hopefully it tends to that emotional haze that I'm feeling. So step 5 is I will talk to my husband. So the action plan is I will talk to my husband before we both go to bed on Wednesday night. So I'm being specific, for 20 minutes or for 10 minutes. I would discuss how our arguments from last week may still be rubbing off on me the wrong way. And my contingency plan now is if I'm not able to speak to him face to face, I will send him a message and let him know that I'm open to talk about it maybe later or in the night or something. And step 6 is take action. So I ensure that I do this so that I can keep my promise to myself. I can honor myself. Step 7 is I'll reflect on how the conversation made me feel. How did it go? Did it go well? After I shared my thoughts with him, do I feel better? What was his response? How did it make me feel? As that, lashing out feeling or discomfort I've been feeling, did it go away? Right? Then number 8, I will rinse and repeat. I will repeat that same action if needed. If I feel like, I still need to have this conversation again, and I'll do it again. But if not, I start that process of looking at my well-being and seeing, okay, which area needs tending to again the next week, or if I need to continue, I continue until I start to feel better in that area that needs my attention. So I hope this kind of gives you clarity on how you can view self-care, how it doesn't have to be a burden, how it doesn't have to be glamorous, and how you can realistically incorporate it into your life as a mom, as a professional, as you, basically, right? So this brings me to the end of this episode on self-care. I hope it's been able to give you a new perspective to self-care, because really that's my intention, just to give you a new way of looking at self-care and how it doesn't have to be glamorous, expensive, or time-consuming. But I'm honestly praying for the best of well-being for you as listening, your loved ones. And may Allah grant us afia. Ameen. Before I round off today, before I log off today, I'd just like to invite you to subscribe to the Radiant newsletters. Those are letters that I send out bi-weekly, where I share thoughts that hopefully illuminate your mind, or gives a mindset shift, or encourages you, or, just I share stuff that I'm learning or also implementing in my life. I'll also like to invite you to the Nisabaah Nurture Circle, which is a well-being community, which is starting at the end of September. So by the time you're listening to this, we'll have maybe 2 weeks official launch. Enrolment is now open, so you can log on to nisabaah.com/nurture circle to find out all the details about it. It's a paid community. It will run for 12 weeks at a time, so it's like cycle based. And for this very first cycle, we are dealing with overcoming self-criticism and cultivating self-compassion. These topics were chosen because as women, as moms, we are under immense pressure, and sometimes we don't give ourselves the grace and the slack that we need to really experience the beauty of life, to experience growth, to enjoy life as it should be enjoyed, right? So we doubt ourselves, we beat ourselves up, and we end up going the opposite direction to where we really want to go. So this is what this cycle will be about. It's a group coaching where you'll be coached by me, and we would all share our own experiences and grow together in a supportive community, be it NILA. So I hope you at least check out the landing page to see what it's about, and if it interests you, I hope to see you in the circle come October. So thank you so much for listening. Please share, like, subscribe to the podcast, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.